Now you could always pick up one DZO Vespid Prime as your affordable cinema lens option, or you could pick 3 of these. Today's video is about the Zhongyi Super 35 Midicon Speedmaster T1.0 for my RED Komodo X, which is kind of a mouthful. However, for the price of one of these, you could actually pick up 3 affordable cinema lenses, but we'll get into it. Now, this isn't the first Zhongyi lens that I've actually reviewed. I actually used the 50mm full-frame version a few months ago, and I actually compared it to the 50mm G-Master lens. Now, unlike that 50mm, these guys are going to be Super 35, and you have the options of a 20, a 35, and a 50mm lens. These also do have that T1.0 aperture, which we're going to talk a little bit about later, but just know that these lenses are a lot like their full-frame counterparts. As far as build quality goes, these are pretty decent. Now, it kind of feels like they're made out of the same stuff as the DZO Vespid Primes, albeit different shapes, and that are going to be a different weight. Now, there are going to be 2 things that I'm not entirely crazy about with these lenses. One is going to be the lens cap, because it feels kind of easy to take off, which kind of defeats the purpose, and it doesn't feel incredibly secure, although it does a pretty decent job. And the second thing might freak you out the first time you're going to use it. However, it's pretty normal, just particularly with one of the lenses in the set. It's a little bit weird. Now, this is going to be a 20mm lens, and sometimes when you're moving lenses around, you might actually hear the element move a little bit, but that's not necessarily a cause of concern. There's probably nothing broken with it. For example, listen to this. You don't really hear anything. Now, I am going to pull up the 35mm lens, which is another lens in this set. It matches the other lens pretty well, but once I shake it, you can kind of hear the element move around a little bit. Now, this might just be because I have a pre-production copy, or just maybe a copy I gotta send back to get tightened a little bit, but you might find that some of these lenses, when you're moving the element around, makes a little bit of a sound. Now, this isn't exclusive to this set of lenses. Other lenses have elements that move when you shake them around, but if that's something that makes you a bit nervous, just know one of these lenses might have that. What's also nice about these lenses is that they're only about 1.4 to 1.8 pounds depending on the focal length, which makes it really easy to use for gimbal work, which we'll talk about later on in this video. Now let's talk about lens character, and the Midicon Super 35s are going to be really similar to the full frame variants that I've used before. Both sets actually have a warmer tone to it. It's going to lean a little bit warmer, the greens are going to be up a little bit, and it's going to have that tint that gives you a little bit of vintage but also gives you some warmth, which I actually personally like on skin. Now, between cinema lenses, you kind of want things to match up, and that's actually where there might be a bit of a weakness on the Zhongyi side of things versus something like the DZO Vespid Primes. Between the set of DZO Vespid Primes or other cinema lenses that might be a bit more expensive, the look and the color and the tone are going to match up pretty evenly between each focal length. However, when I'm testing this guy out, the 20mm looks a little bit different than the 35 and the 50mm lenses respectively. The 20 is a little bit more warmer than the warm character that it already comes with on this lens, and it does lean a little bit green. That does mean that in DaVinci Resolve I do have to balance it by bringing up my magentas, but you might want to know that all these lenses in terms of their color don't match up entirely. Now, the color and tone is very similar to the full frame counterpart to these lenses, although the focus breathing and the flaring is a little bit different. Now, when using the full frame version, I got a little bit of an interesting flare coming out of this lens when putting a light right up into the lens, but you don't necessarily get that as much on these new Zhongyi lenses. Now, from the testing that I've done with these lenses, the flaring is actually not completely out of control, which is actually super nice because sometimes I don't want flares all over my image. Sometimes that's a character people like, but that just means that they use pretty decent coatings to control some of the flaring. You do have a 270-degree focus throw on here, which means that it's long enough for you to pull focus on and to dial things in without making some mistakes, but the focus breathing still has some room for improvement. Now, we are going to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's going to be the T1.0 that's on this lens. Now, the name Speedmaster refers to the fact that it's probably one of the lowest apertures I've had on any lens, and at T1.0 it does let in a lot of light. You do get a lot of shallow depth of field. However, when you put it down to 1.0 and you ND yourself down to balance your exposure, it's kind of soft and I might not use it all the time. In fact, if I'm shooting at T1.0 or anything around that T1 to 1.8, it feels a little bit more like a dream sequence. And if that's the style of film you're making, then this makes a lot of sense. But if you're looking for a lens that's going to be a bit more sharper and a little bit more realistic, maybe shooting at T1.0 isn't the best option for this guy. Now, when I do stop down to T2 or T2.2 or even T2.8, this lens sharpens up quite nicely and the image is really, really good for a lens that's only $500 a pop. Now, I did mention that you could get either 3 of the Zongzi Minicon Speedmasters, or you can get 1 DZO Vespid Prime. Now, obviously there's going to be differences between these two lenses. For one, the DZO Vespid Prime is going to be a full frame lens, where the Minicon is going to be a Super 35 only. They're both going to have 77mm filter threads, which is great because you don't have to change your filter size, but you're also going to get different character out of both of these lenses. The Minicons actually are a little bit on the warmer and the greener side, like we mentioned before, where the DZO Vespid Primes are actually a little bit more cooler and a little bit more neutral. However, there is one big thing here, and it's going to be the price. Now, if you want to pick up a DZO Vespid Prime, a full frame cinema lens, and maybe you have a Super 35 camera so it doesn't make a difference, this is going to be about $13.99 to get 1 of these lenses. However, if you want to get 3 of the Zongzi Minicon Speedmasters, it's about $100 less to get the entire set, or you can get it for $4.99 each in order to get 1 of these guys to add into your kit. Now, I'm not going to tell you that the Zongzi lens are going to be better than the DZO Vespid Primes. Different strokes for different folks, and you're going to need different lenses for different situations. However, these are going to be great and affordable lenses, especially in the Super 35 range for your Nikon camera, your Sony camera, Fuji, or the Canon RF mount, which I'm using on my RED Komodo X, but you can use it on any RF mount camera that's Super 35. Now, when talking about how light these lenses are, I should probably reference a project that I recently worked on. Just a couple of days ago, I did work on a music video setup, and I wanted to use these lenses because it kind of fit the style of the video I wanted to get, and at the same time, these lenses were light enough to fit on the RS3 Pro with the RED Komodo X. Having lenses that are going to be in the cinema range, especially if you have someone pulling focus for you, is absolutely clutch to get the character that you want, and also being able to pull focus on a 270-degree focus pull. And to be fair, they're pretty cheap lenses relative to other lenses available on the market. Now, if you guys do want to see that music video when it's finished, I'm going to leave a link when it's updated, but we just did it a couple of days ago. It's going to take a while to edit these things, but that's going to be something later on you guys could watch to really see the Zongzi Minicon Speedmasters in action. That being said, these lenses are great, and for the price of getting 1 DZO Vespid Prime, especially if you're on a budget or you're starting out and you're using Super 35 cameras, you're able to get 3 of these for only $12.99, which is a great deal, especially when you're just getting started and you need lenses with a little bit of character and a lot of upside. Now, Zongzi did send me these set of lenses, and if you guys want to get one for yourself, you guys could check out the link in the description down below, and maybe there's an affiliate link there somewhere. I actually don't know, but if you guys want to check it out, you guys could pick a set of these guys up if you're looking at something like a DZO Vespid Prime, but you don't necessarily have the budget to only spend it on 1 lens. That being said, if you guys want to see more videos on the Komodo X or other cameras that I've probably used before, I'm gonna leave one over there and you guys can check it out. That being said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.